Watch this.
There are not very many things that are 99.99%, so I'm very pleased.
When it comes to education, 99% is considered a pretty high A. But would misusing $41,000 of grant funding still be considered a failure? When you're grabbing a drink at a wedding, you don't usually think about being involved in a crime. But ISP's recent crackdown on mobile bars is proving you may have to be less mobile to be legal in Idaho.
What do you think, Tank, huh? Yeah, you got all kinds of problems now.
We don't have mistakes, we just have happy little accidents. So, yeah, I'd call them our happy little accidents.
10 happy little accidents may have landed an Eastern Idaho dog in trouble, but it boosted his owner's social media cred, especially when it comes to what to call the combo of Daddy Dachshund and Mama Golden Retriever. Well, it took about 6 months and 2 audits, but Idaho's constitutional officers are confidently calling the Empowering Parents Grant Program a success. The program was designed to confront learning loss through the COVID-19 pandemic, but it does continue today. And it grants up to $3,000 for a family to buy school supplies, and only those things that would help improve a child's education. Well, if you recall last summer, an internal audit found parents spent that money on stuff that really wouldn't be considered educational, to the tune of $180,000. Another audit was done, this time by an external entity, and they concluded last month, well, that amount of money misused was only about $40,000, which is quite a bit of discrepancy, isn't it? Well, the audits apparently accounted by different rules, but the bottom line, the state says $40,000 out of $40 million, that's close enough.
It started as a tangible solution to an otherwise overlooked problem.
Besides keeping the people of Idaho safe, learning loss was top of my mind.
COVID clipped classroom hours, opportunities, and lesson plans. The state made time and place policies in a time and place of uncertainty.
You know, our kids in Idaho were out of school probably less than...
For sure less than any other state.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean Idaho students didn't need extra help, and that their families didn't need assistance.
There aren't many programs available nationwide that look like this.
The Empowering Parents Grant grew out of the pandemic, awarding eligible families $1,000 per student for educational supplies. Families are prioritized based on income and capped at $3,000.
The grants have been used to purchase things like tutoring, computers, other technological devices to help with educational needs outside of the classroom.
But the State Board of Education says those grants were also used for clothing, TVs, smartwatches, and household cleaning supplies. The discovery led to a pair of audits. The State Board of Education found $180,000 worth of questions, while an external audit found enough answers to reduce that to $40,000. It's roughly 0.1% of the total $40 million rollout.
I was very pleased. Where I came from, 99.99 is an A.
The discrepancy between the two audits stems partially from a change in the program. Over time, the state expanded its scope.
But it all came down to how do we make this program more accessible for families.
The expansion included PE equipment and practical items like backpacks. And as written on the internal audit, the purchases in the newly approved categories would be considered eligible retroactively.
We recognize and through this program can honor that parents are the experts on their kids.
The program granted 60,000 transactions in total.
Advisory.
More than 80% of purchases didn't raise concern to warrant a second look.
This helps a lot with homeschooling, so it just goes back to kids are different. We need to give them lots of options.
The program's currently in its second year, and funding is currently open.
We were filling a gap.
Providing real dollars to ideally get real results.
This is just one more tool in the toolbox to make sure that every child has the maximum possible opportunity to succeed in life, and this is a great step in that direction.
The initial internal audit from the summer of 2023 says once an ineligible purchase is determined, the state and the vendor, that vendor's called Odyssey, will then move to reverse the purchase and reimburse the state. And some of those purchases, Brian, are actually pretty funny.
Okay.
I printed off a few of them.
All right.
Somebody spent $45 on lion portraits.
Like pictures of lions.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's portraits, it's plural, so I'm assuming there's more than one. Video subscriptions, I don't know if that's like Netflix or something, it's a little vague there, but these are $175 charges.
Okay.
Somebody bought a band for their Apple Watch. They said that doesn't count. Balloon stuffing, and balloons to be stuffed with that balloon stuffing.
I didn't know
I don't
you
know
could
what
stuff
balloon
balloons.
stuffing is.
Unless gender reveals, maybe? I don't know.
Somebody was getting Legos, liquid floor tiles, which I guess is like a toy, like the kids can play on it. It changes colors. And then
Okay.
this is the best one.
All right.
Multiple pages of skateboarding lessons.
Really?
The charges range, there's 44 instances of skateboarding lessons. Those charges range from $10 up to $1,000. So there's a skateboard teacher out there that's potentially got to reimburse the state a lot of
And
money.
a kid who's probably pretty good at it. I mean, that's PE right there, right? Physical education.
That's probably the argument. I don't think it qualifies, though.
All right. Well, all right. Thanks, Andrew, for looking into that. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, permits to sell beer and wine and liquor licenses, they're not easy to come by all the time in most places in Idaho. In fact, the wait list to get one in some cities can be as long as 10 years. But what if you just borrowed one, like for the weekend? Idaho State Police say that is what some sellers are doing, and they're just calling it something else, a mobile bar. Think a wedding or a party with a hired cash bar. However, those party planners and bartenders may actually be committing a felony. Mobile bars can be legal, but ISP says there's something people need to know about them. Here's Joe Paris.
The early days of January, you might be reminiscing still about the holidays that were, the food, the fun, the family, maybe some alcoholic drinks.
This is one of the busier time of years.
Yes, the alcoholic drinks portion of the holiday season certainly gives the State Police Division for Alcohol Beverage Control plenty to work on. Idaho State Police Captain Rocky Gripton says there is major attention now on illegal mobile bars.
Problem in Idaho is we don't have a license just for mobile catering. And so essentially licensees have allowed these mobile catering businesses to essentially use their license.
Under Idaho law, there are very specific rules on who can go mobile to sell beer, wine, and liquor at events.
That requires essentially a brick and mortar establishment with an address that's properly zoned to conduct that type of business.
Businesses that have a liquor license still need to get county and city permits to serve at an event. They can't just set up and start selling out of a trailer. And those licenses, they're not shareable. Businesses can't lease out their liquor licenses to other entities.
A lot of the times they may be receiving payment on the back end for allowing somebody else the use of that license.
So customers can be told by a business, oh yeah, we have a license, even being shown what looks like their legit paperwork. Leads them to believe that that's all they need to do.
They're probably not going to know because a lot of these companies are holding themselves out on the internet as a valid company, going as far as stating that they're properly licensed and insured when at the end of the day they're not.
This isn't a hypothetical either. Idaho State Police sees illegal mobile bars popping up more and more around the state. In fact, they made an arrest back in November.
This was one of those scenarios when they didn't have a license whatsoever, not even a catering permit. They made an attempt at obtaining a catering permit, but were denied because, they weren't a licensee.
To be clear, these are not new laws.
As far as I know, since Prohibition in the 1930s, it's a felony. That's punishable, I believe, up to a $5,000 fine or 5 years in prison. This has probably been going on for a long enough period that they became accustomed to it. And now that we've more been alerted to it, we're trying to do everything we can to provide education. We're reaching out, but we still have those cases where people are going to do it anyway.
So with ISP stepping up enforcement and really focusing on this issue, some general advice would be if you're going to book a company to bring liquor, to sell liquor at one of your events, make sure they have the correct paperwork and not just the liquor license. You also have to make sure that the city and the county, they've also signed off on the event permit. But Brian, this law actually falls in with a lot of liquor laws that date back to Prohibition. And I was just talking with ISP today about, the idea too that, for example, you can't drive into Idaho with more than 2 quarts of liquor. It's against the law. And I don't know how many people know that.
Okay, so you're supposed to triple check, but let's say you do check twice. They say we're good. Who's liable? The person that hired the mobile bar or the actual mobile bar?
In terms of liability, I'll have to check for you, Brian. But if they get shut down and then they can't show up at your event, you're out liquor.
Or in the middle of the event. That would be a bit embarrassing. All right, thanks, Joe. When someone gets a lot of attention on the internet, we call it going viral. When a dashing dachshund gets busy with a golden retriever, we call it, well, we have a couple of ideas. We also have the story of when those two things come together, literally. Well, it's time for you to come together with the 208 and share your thoughts on the show. Send us a text, 208-321-5614. And don't forget to include your name in the hashtag the 208. We'll take your interesting innuendos and your playful puns, too. As you probably know, designer dog breeds are all the rage these days, to the chagrin of traditional breeders and local animal shelters. They get dubbed with some weird combo names like a Woodle, which is a combination of a Wheaten Terrier and a Poodle. There's a Peekapoo, which is Pekingese and a Poodle. A Cockapoo, a mix between a Cocker Spaniel and a Poodle. Poodles are getting a lot out of this. How about a Chiweenie, a Chihuahua and a Dachshund? Well, one eastern Idaho man has made a name for himself on the internet over what to call a designer breed, which wasn't exactly designed by him, wasn't even intended. Brian Rowland lives just outside Blackfoot, and on his farm, he has pigs, chickens, horses, cows, and a lot of dogs. And just recently, a certain type of puppy that he didn't expect.
Out here feeding cows.
One would think
About a week or so before Christmas. This is 9 or 10 days.
A farmer from middle of nowhere, Sterling, Idaho,
Out here in the dog hills.
would never find himself in the middle of viral success on social media.
I had a hard time figuring out how to get on Zoom, so I'm not really the classic social media type of guy.
Still, that hasn't stopped Brian Rowland from rolling on his everyday life on the farm.
When you go to town and you get a chance to get a little ass, you just do it. Don't tell your wife.
Because she's going to figure it out when you come home anyways. Right, Brea, huh?
It seems Brian knows what he's doing with his socials.
You know, I'm authentic, so hopefully that counts for something.
But nothing prepared him for what happened on his farm last fall.
Here's all the Golden Wieners, close-ups of them.
You see, a couple months before,
6 girls, 4 boys, proud papa.
Tank,
He really is a good dog. Except for sometimes you do bad stuff, huh?
the young and apparently prolific dachshund, made more than some memories. Who's that?
That's Tank right there.
Hey, Tank. Okay, so tell me how Tank met Fern.
Hey, Fern.
Well, Fern is our golden retriever, and Tank, you know, he likes the tall blondes. She was in heat, and he climbed out of a fenced yard, and she climbed out of a kennel, and love found a way, I guess.
I'm sure a lot of people are asking how exactly love found a way.
He got into some Red Bull, and they say it gives you wings, and I don't know, but I kind of switched over to Red Bull after that.
I bet.
I mean, he's a pretty resourceful little guy, so.
Okay, so how did you realize that Fern was with child and that it was Tank's?
Oh, I came outside and saw the incident as it was ending.
Brian's reaction
I said a lot of stuff.
paled in comparison to the outcome.
What do you think, Tank, huh? Yeah, You got all kinds of problems now.
which Brian instantly uploaded to TikTok.
Before some hippie gets on here and yells at me about it, it wasn't me, it wasn't my idea. It was all him.
We've been raising dogs for 20 years, and this is our first, I don't want to call them mistakes. What Bob Ross said, we don't have mistakes, we just have happy little accidents. So, yeah, I'd call them our happy little accidents. So
Those accidents became a blessing on the internet with more than 18 million views.
when that video took off and blew up on us, it exploded my inbox, and TikTok shut it down, kind of a thing. It said too many messages.
Here's an update
But Brian kept posting,
on the Golden Wieners.
which brought about what to call these calamities.
So from the comment section, seems there's a lot of controversy on whether or not a Dachshund Golden Retriever cross should be called a Golden Wiener or a Wiener Retriever.
I don't know. I thought, have a little fun with it. They're super cute dogs. Call them something kind of funny.
And that's how a farmer from eastern Idaho
Wiener Retriever or Golden Wiener?
and his Wiener Retrievers or Golden Wieners, whatever you want to call them, became a World Wide Web sensation.
Walk like a dachshund.
Yeah, can't go wrong there, right?
That's a great combination. Well, Brian says they had several other suggestions for what to call this rare combo, which he said will look like Golden Retrievers, just sawed off at the legs. Like Golden Dachs. Retrievers was one of them, but they're down to those two finalists. And Brian is down to no more Golden Wieners at home. He got so many requests from all over the country, he ended up sending Wiener Retriever puppies to Seattle and as far away as Florida. Brian said he sent the last one off today. And he isn't planning on having any more on the farm, by the way. But Tank and Fern, they may have other plans. And if they do, you can bet you're going to see them on his Wild Ideas with Brian social media pages.
What is a Mick Mouse?
Mick Mouse.
I don't understand what Mick Mouse is.
Mick Mouse.
I don't know. What does that mean? What's a Mick Mouse?
Mick Mouse.
Are you saying Mickey Mouse?
Yes.
Well, Mick Mouse is now in the public domain. At least a version of him is. But did you know about the mouse's connection to Idaho? We'd love to hear about other interesting links to the Gem State. You can text them to us or tell us anything else about the 208. Send it to 208-321-5614 with your name and the hashtag the 208. And stick around. We could share yours at the end of the show.
After a bit of a dry stretch, we are seeing that moisture come back into the region once again. Today, we have a low pressure center that with that circulation is bringing moisture up from the south. So we've been seeing some of those moisture readings on the radar fill in throughout the afternoon hour, sometimes from the west to the east. But as we look towards the evening hours, expect this moisture to continue, and it's going to be a little on the lighter side, which will set up some fog for us tomorrow morning. But we have a really active pattern that is setting up for us all the way from now until the weekend with several different rounds of snow. So here's what we're expecting through Sunday. We will still see the cold mornings. Our high temperatures will still be a little bit closer to the above average range. But again, with these rounds of snow, it's not anything where I've seen any specific totals where it's, just shocking, but we will see those few inches add up throughout this time period. And also we're watching for that fog and patchy ice tonight, specifically for the valleys tomorrow morning. So here's where all of that moisture is on the radar. Currently, you can see a little bit more of that snow moving into Magic Valley areas. And through valley locations, we've seen the snow switch to rain, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a switch back to snow in the evening hours. But in the mountain areas, we have seen some of those lighter totals throughout the ski resorts. Bogus Basin has the highest total for today at 2 inches. But as we look again towards those valley locations, you can see it is mainly rain, and we could see this turn to some patchy ice again once we hit that freezing mark. But thankfully for right now, we are above that freezing mark. As we look ahead for the rest of your evening will look like, you can see a lot of that moisture still moving to the east again, and it will be a very active pattern as we continue to see multiple rounds of snow. We see that pick up again in the late night hours of Thursday, continuing into the very early morning hours of Friday before we see more move back in on Saturday. So very active pattern ahead for us.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Steamboat Willie is now up for grabs. You'll probably know this toe-tapping, hip-swinging, whistling fella as Mickey Mouse himself. But back on November 18th, 1928, this youngster hit New York's Colony Theater with a bang in the widely popular film Steamboat Willie. Literally. It was Disney's first synchronized sound film starring Mickey Mouse, and thus, Mickey Mouse was born. Fast forward 95 years, and those early images of the musical Mouse are now available for you and me. Disney lost their copyright protection on New Year's Day. Hooray! So, grab your Steamboat Willie now, because they're flying off the shelves. Use them in your horror films. Call home about it. Even post them on your TikToks or whatever the kids are doing these days. Don't walk. Run!
So you've probably seen this, right? Steamboat Willie all over the news the last couple of days. Well, because of that copyright protection expiring, and the cartoon is now part of the public domain. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with Idaho, like at all? Well, Walt Disney actually has a unique tie to the gem state.
July 13th, 1925. Walt Disney said, "I do" to Spalding, Idaho-born Lillian Marie Bounds in Lewiston.
They were actually married at her brother's home.
That home at 918 3rd Street still stands and still looks almost identical to how it did then. Well, it didn't take long for Lillian to put her imprint into one of America's most iconic cartoons. She actually came up with the name Mickey.
He wanted to call it Mortimer, and she felt that was too old-fashioned. It just didn't have the flavor of being joyous. Mortimer is an old fogey name.
We first brought you that story back in 2020, I believe, which is why we had to put it in the U-box or the YouTube box, so we didn't have rights to it. Now we do. And we think Mickey Mouse is a better name as well. More current versions of Mickey Mouse, though, those are going to stay under the copyright protection by Disney. Minnie Mouse, as she appears in Steamboat Willie, that is also now part of the public domain. All right, we'll get to your Golden Wiener text in just a moment. But first, we have this question from Chuck in Boise, who asks, why do the vendors have to pay back the state when it was the parent buying non-school equipment? Well, that was part of the agreement between the State Department of Education and Odyssey. They will move to reverse the purchases and reimburse the state, as it was explained in the story, so that's why. Maybe next time to open up the number of liquor licenses allowed. This is outdated and nonsense and keeps businesses out of our state, says Matt. They kind of made an adjustment this last legislative session back in 2023. We'll see if that shakes any of that loose going forward into next year. Maybe they'll address it this session. You should do a follow-up story in a couple years so we can see what these mixed breed puppies look like when they grow up, says Jackie. Well, Brian said he did give a couple of them away locally so he could keep tabs on them and kind of know what they look like. My husband suggests Goldie Docs. That's a good one, says Kathy and Eagle. My neighbor had puppies from their pit bull and Shih Tzu. You can only imagine what that might be called. We'll see you tomorrow.